Thank you for coming to this session, Putting the Past on Trial, Burning Dead Witches. And just to say that we conceived of this session really particularly in the wake of the Jimmy Savile sex scandal originally. But one of the things that's unravelled, not just in relation to that, over the discussion, has been the concept of the bad old days, a real kind of dredging up of the past, and on occasion, a witch hunt-like atmosphere. And we at least wanted to consider that at this year's festival. We also wanted to consider the fact that in the discussion around particularly sexual abuse, but it's not at all confined to it, the idea that things that have happened to you as an individual in the past, you will never get over, will define you forevermore. So there's kind of two different themes there.
So I've spent the past few years researching the problem of generations, which is essentially the problem of society's relationship between the past, the present and the future. And the form this problem often takes at the moment, and what my research focuses on, is why it is that the generation known as the baby boomers seem to be blamed for everything that's wrong with the world in 2013. This is everything from the economic crisis to young people's apparent inability to grow up. And this is apparently because the boomers have stolen all the jobs and houses, but worse than that, on a more psychological level, because they've become a generation of helicopter parents who hover over their children and stop them from striking out alone. There's always been a kind of rebellion against the past, but this critique of the past was largely based in a desire to transcend the past. It contained within it a vision of the future, however imperfect or one-sided that vision may have been. Today it seems a bit different. We seem to be constantly at war with the past, even the very recent past. So part of the problem with the baby boomers, for example, is seen to be the way that they represent everything that was wrong with the 60s, up to and including Jimmy Savile. But while we're constantly at war with the past, there doesn't seem to be any sense of future orientation within that critique. Rather, what you get is a strong sentiment of fatalism, the idea that the recent past has made us what we are now, and we can't transcend it, all we can do is to suffer it. That fatalism is expressed in various ways. I mean, one of the kind of ongoing, recurring themes that I'm preoccupied with is the idea that today's generation is going to be so much worse off than previous generations. It's now taken as an article of faith. I mean, you seem to read it, some new study every 2 months, making this point. And there doesn't seem to be any thought that things actually might change over the course of the younger generation now, let alone that the younger generation now might have any control over shaping their life circumstances. And that seems to me to be based on a strangely pre-modern idea that the past determines and continues to determine what we are today. There's a sort of sense that all the good stuff has been used up, just leaving us to live out the consequences in a grim and miserable fashion. Or, summed up quite nicely in the words of Government Minister David Willetts in his book, I mean, the title says it all really, The Pinch, How the Baby Boomers Took Their Children's Future and Why They Should Give It Back. And he makes the point, his central thesis of this book is that younger generations have been left to clear up the mess, and that's the phrase he uses, clear up the mess left by their parents who threw this big party without any regard to the consequences. An even pithier summary of the extent to which the past is seen to determine what we are now is given by the journalist Sarah Vine, who again is talking about the boomers. She says, not only were they economically blessed, affordable housing, low energy costs, free university education, fluid economies, they also had some of the most hedonistic and uncomplicated fun since the Romans, all the sex, the best music, all the easy idealism of privilege. Now, I just want to end with a couple of questions. First of all, even if you accept that it's possible for natural and economic resources to be used up, which actually I don't, but a lot of people do think that, even if you accept that, how is it possible to use up all the sex? Fun, music, idealism. I mean, surely all of these things are things that each generation makes anew. Obviously, that's why you get generations, because people have sex. I mean, you get this kind of real sense that it's possible to use up these resources that are now considered finite, which never in the past would have been considered finite. When it comes to idealism, I find it particularly interesting, because historically, difficult circumstances have often been seen as the precondition for idealism, providing the spur for people to want to bring about change. So why should that be out of the question now? Why should it be that, because things are difficult, that means that people can't think about the future anymore? And my second question, which I think really kind of, to me is the hub of this whole debate, is what does it say about the younger generation's relationship with the future if it's believed that it's already been lived out by their parents?